During World War II, the Atlantic Ocean hid a deadly threat beneath its waves: German U-boats. Feared by Allied navies, these submarines were also a kind of prison for the men who served on them. Cramped, suffocating, and constantly hunted, life aboard a U-boat was a relentless struggle for survival. Today, we're diving into the harsh, claustrophobic life of a World War II U-boat crewman. The origins of German submarine warfare stretch back to World War I, when Germany first recognized the immense strategic value of stealth attacks beneath the waves. Despite their initial effectiveness, U-boats in the First World War had limitations that restricted their operational reach and duration. Recognizing these shortcomings, German naval planners invested heavily in interwar advancements. Significant technological improvements were made in hull designs, propulsion systems, and armaments, culminating in the devastatingly effective U-boat fleet of World War II. Central to these developments was the Type 7C, the principal submarine class of the Kriegsmarine. Specifically engineered for the grueling conditions of the North Atlantic, these vessels were tasked with intercepting and devastating Allied convoys far beyond the protective cover of friendly aircraft. Despite their formidable capabilities, the U-boats were notoriously uncomfortable and unsafe. The focus was purely on combat effectiveness, with minimal consideration for crew comfort or safety. As a result, submariners were forced to live among machinery, armaments, and supplies in spaces designed with little regard for human endurance. Each crew member aboard a U-boat had specialized roles, often performing multiple critical tasks necessary for survival and operational effectiveness. Commanding officers bore immense responsibility, making crucial decisions during combat engagements, directing attacks, and maneuvering their boats to evade detection. Navigators, often doubling as quartermasters, meticulously managed scarce provisions, charted routes through hazardous waters, and kept detailed logs essential for navigation. Engineers played an indispensable role, maintaining and repairing diesel engines essential for surface propulsion and electric battery systems, critical for underwater stealth operations. Their constant vigilance ensured that the submarine remained operational even under the most punishing conditions. Torpedo specialists, tasked with the preparation and maintenance of the vessel's deadly payload, spent much of their time near the weapons storage compartments, ever ready to engage enemy targets. Radio men maintained vital communications with German high command and coordinated fleet activities, transmitting and receiving messages that could alter the course of their mission in an instant. Sonar operators remained tirelessly vigilant, monitoring oceanic sounds to detect approaching enemy vessels and aircraft, crucially aiding in defensive and offensive maneuvers. Even the cook's role was essential. Operating within the tiny galley, the cook was tasked not only with preparing meals, but also lifting crew morale, providing much-needed respite and brief moments of comfort amidst the constant strain. Daily life aboard a U-boat was brutally punishing, defined by severe physical hardship and mental strain. Around 50 men inhabited spaces barely sufficient for half that number, every available nook occupied by piping, wiring, equipment, and essential provisions. Privacy was non-existent, with sleeping quarters reduced to cramped bunks stacked along narrow corridors. Crewmen were routinely disturbed, their sleep interrupted by passing colleagues or sudden alarms signaling imminent danger. Hygiene deteriorated rapidly aboard U-boats, as freshwater reserves were strictly rationed for drinking purposes. Showers were a luxury the crew could not afford. Submariners were constantly damp, suffering from persistent moisture that exacerbated skin conditions, fungal infections, and overall discomfort. Stagnant air compounded the misery, laden with a revolting mixture of sweat, oil, diesel fumes, and human waste. Seasickness was a relentless torment, particularly in heavy seas, aggravating the already unbearable discomfort. Crewmen assigned to deck watch endured freezing temperatures, relentless winds, and the constant threat of enemy aircraft detection. Returning from duty soaking wet provided no relief, as uniforms seldom dried fully before the next shift. This perpetually damp environment not only increased discomfort, but significantly heightened the risk of respiratory infections and general ill health, further weakening the crew's capacity to perform their duties effectively. Despite horrific conditions, the German Navy understood the importance of nutrition in maintaining crew morale and physical capability. U-boats initially stocked fresh produce, meats, and vegetables, quickly consumed due to limited refrigeration capacity. After these initial supplies depleted, meals rapidly devolved into repetitive, unappetizing fare, consisting primarily of canned soups, preserved meats, potatoes, bread, and biscuits. Chocolate and other rare treats occasionally provided a minor morale boost. Prolonged patrols required risky mid-sea resupply operations, dangerously exposing crews to detection and attacks by enemy forces. These monotonous and insufficient diets weakened the submariners' immune systems, leaving them highly vulnerable to infections and chronic illnesses. Medical care aboard was primitive at best, with serious injuries or illnesses frequently resulting in prolonged suffering or death, as evacuation for treatment was often impossible. The psychological pressure faced by U-boat crews was relentless and severe. Long patrols, often lasting weeks or months, imposed brutal isolation and confinement, exacerbating feelings of anxiety and depression. The constant fear of discovery and the relentless threat of depth charge attacks made psychological strain often unbearable. The sound of enemy sonar pings or the distant rumble of approaching destroyers induced terror, creating an environment of constant oppressive tension. Morale further deteriorated as reports of devastating Allied air raids on German cities reached submariners, who worried endlessly about their loved ones back home. In an attempt to counteract the mental strain, commanders introduced recreational activities such as reading, chess, and card games, along with ideological propaganda sessions designed to reinforce commitment and camaraderie. Nonetheless, the mental burdens endured by these men often proved overwhelming, manifesting as severe anxiety, depression, paranoia, and debilitating fear. The harsh reality of serving aboard a U-boat is reflected starkly in sobering statistics. During World War II, U-boat submariners faced the highest casualty rate of any German forces, with a devastating 70% fatality rate. A further 711 of the 1,149 deployed U-boats were lost, a 61% destruction rate. The average life expectancy for a U-boat sailor was a mere 60 days, underscoring the extraordinary dangers endured by these men in the unforgiving depths of the ocean. If you found this exploration into the life of a U-boat sailor interesting, be sure to check out our video on life of a galley slave during the Age of Sail on your screen now. But if you've made it this far, thank you for watching, stay curious, and we'll see you on the next one.